I go sit over there.
Sorry. I'm pulling up my agenda.
Thought you put me between the two to make sure I stayed under, always keep me on.
Just wondering who's keeping track of you, that's all.
Yeah.
We're good. We're good. All right, let's go ahead and call our school board meeting to order. Is there any additions to our agenda?
Yes, we have 9 new contracts and 1 resignation.
And pledge of allegiance.
Oh, we got to do pledge of allegiance.
Yeah.
And Dan's going to pledge allegiance today.
Is he remote?
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dan for reminding me. What happens when you miss a meeting? Is the whole goes back. All right, so you said 9.
9 new contracts, 1 resignation.
But here's new contracts.
Yes.
I moved to approve with additions.
Thank you, Dan.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tricia. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on to Mr. Mitchell, our Director of Technology. Presentation day.
Okay, Alicia, please want to bring the meeting up on the big screen.
Yeah, I will.
All right, thank you, Alicia. So it's that time of year again, OE7, and I get an opportunity as we talk about asset protection to sprinkle a little bit of technology in there. So always excited and thankful for the opportunity to say thanks to this board for supporting all the operations endeavors that we do as a technology team. Obviously, when you take a look at an organization of this size, the budget is substantial, but when you take a look at our budget, it's a pretty big chunk. So we're thankful for that support and thankful for the people that we have on board, representing 23 dedicated technology team members. And like Levi alluded to in a little bit in our dialogue, in the committee of the whole, we're very much focused on collaborative ownership, collective efficacy, just really not driving things. If you take a look at contemporary times, technology is such a foundation to so many things. We certainly could exert some odd influence if we wanted to, if we had that agenda. But we're very service-minded in our team and want to ensure that we're supporting the district as a whole in doing what's right at the end of the day for our learners, because that's the job that we all have. So again, thank you to the board for your support of our team and for all the things that we're able to accomplish. Tonight, I have a few minutes. I want to visit with you guys about obviously some cybersecurity aspects. And this is something that you've seen before, but just like a lot of things, I think it's important to build off that, revisit certain things so we get greater depth of understanding, but also continue to build out that so you can see how things are evolving and how our team is working as hard as we can to stay in front of things. We have to be real. We have to say the truth, right? When it comes to this game, you're always on the defense and you're always 10 points behind. That is the reality of it. Now, that isn't thrown out there to be some type of cover for if we ever stumble or fall. It's not thrown out there to make everyone, oh, let's go put on a tinfoil hat and put away all our devices. That is certainly not the point that I make, but it is the reality. And I think having conversations, bringing universal awareness to we have to be on the defensive, so to speak, really at all times, or putting forth our best effort at the moment at all times, is really one of the best ways that we can start to build the layers that's required when you take a look at building a good defense. When you look at this, obviously, layer number one, it's always going to be who? You, the person. So we'll talk a little bit in OE7 about some of the proactive things that we do. OE7 is also going to have a smattering of reactive or mitigation strategies that we have. And tonight, what I want to use the time that I have with you to do is talk a little bit about how we know our individual users all the way to national and international scenarios. It's important. So I want to focus a little bit on our state collaboration. We have a great team here in North Dakota. North Dakota is so unique in the fact of how homogenous it is and how many state level initiatives are run. So we're very blessed to have access to those and collaborate with those professionals. We're going to talk about the phishing campaigns that we do. Again, it is our most, I would say, impactful feature that we have, that we consistently go back to what I talked about before, keeping things top of mind, giving people practice. it really to this day is still probably, or not probably, but it is still one of the primarily exploited threat vectors that adversaries use to gain insight. And then last but not least, last year we talked a little bit about a concept. And this year I want to talk about a specific threat. We'll do a new annual feature called the Threat Spotlight. Get excited for that. But it's smishing, Jonas, a new term you can add to your everyday vernacular, smishing, and it has real impact. I'll give you an exact specific example, just like I did with social engineering last year, that someone was pretending to be someone in this room. So we'll talk about that here shortly. All right, so let's take a look. So this is a big deal, right? The Department of Homeland Security has a new division, Cyber and Infrastructure Security. It's really dedicated to this growing thing happening all over the world. Again, like we talked about, not just in K-12, but technology is such a foundational piece of everyday life. From our consumer personal lives to you tell me one industry that hasn't been impacted, by some technology implication. So with that, unfortunately, good, right? And just like everything in the world, there's bad to it as well. So if you recall last year in this presentation, I talked to you about how the federal government putting money where its mouth is. North Dakota itself allocated $1.8 million in cybersecurity grants. And last year, of all things, I looked you in the eyes and I told you, how much did we get? How much did we even go for? Who remembers?
Not much.
$0 and 0 cents. And I convinced you that it was a good thing. Who can remember why?
We already had those first.
We already had those things in place and the grant doesn't allow supplanting. So, not sticking my chest up, but we felt really good. After engaging those conversations, the protocols to secure those dollars came out in December of 22. We really didn't have a place to go because we had all those aspects or probably those low-hanging pieces in place because it was a really tight timeline turnaround. Just like a lot of things that comes from the top, gets to the state, by the time it gets to the schools, it's like, hey, tomorrow it's due, right? So we felt we were in a pretty good posture, but you know what? That wasn't enough. We had other things that we had potential to do. So let's take a look. So what we did, like I said, December 9, 2022, that's where it came out with those. We didn't have anything, but we have this guy, Steve Palmer. Steve Palmer works for North Dakota Information Technology, and he is dedicated to K-12 cybersecurity. Steve Palmer is a Packer alumnus. So yay, Steve Palmer. Served our country in the United States Navy for a lot of years, came back home, not to West Fargo, moved out to Bismarck, but has a really neat job and a really neat role. Steve is an interesting fellow because when you get in his physical presence, it's kind of like, right? But at the same time, when you work with him on a more strategic level, very patient, very calm, is going to guide you where to go, but not force you down that path. That's really helpful for us because when you take a look, we have that great blessing, 23 IT professionals that work for this district. So quite honestly, we don't use a lot of NDIT services like some of our smaller school counterparts would. That is their tech department. So Steve and I have kept strong relations, a lot of collaboration to the point where June 7th of last year, we, in this very room, got to sit down with a Mr. Michael Gregg. He's a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer for the state of North Dakota. What a great conversation. We had our network engineering team in here, Kent, our coordinator, technology support services, myself, NDIT had a small contingency here. And we really sat down and said, okay, we have these things at the state level, they have their version, but how can we still help one another? The byproduct of this conversation was in collaboration where we gave them access to some data, and we are now getting communications like this. Over the course of this year, we received 8, but their cyber NOC, right, their network operations center is looking at network traffic all across StageNet. But because of some of the collaborations and access that we gave them to the tools that we have to do that, they're now sending us information of specific IP addresses, of potentially MAC addresses or host name, the name of this device that says, hey, this place, and I know I graded out, but I did that on purpose, but it's going to all these kind of suspicious places. This one here, if you take a look at it, I know it gets a little bit small, but it was going to the NetWire Rat. The NetWire Rat is a password harvester and a keystroke logger. So we got insight that a device on StageNet, but on our internal WFPS network had the potential. We don't know for sure until we investigate, but it was communicating with servers associated with this service. We had 9 of these over the course of the year, which is pretty exciting, right? The exciting part is some of them we already had. We already knew. What you're seeing here is a snapshot. We have consistent account monitoring, right? This is an actual post from our Teams channel. It's all automated. We got this little bot that tells us, goes us to our right service team. This is the learner. All their information was grayed out, but their account was used to log in from a suspicious IP. Boom, account contained. Local support team notified. Learner called in, password changed, we move on. The one thing I wish we could do with our learners that we do for you guys is what?
Report it.
Yeah, we can do the fish alert things, but not yet. We'll work with Cronin on that in the future. Under Horace. What do you guys have to do when you're off network and you want to hit your account? Most of you will pull this little doohickey out and you're like, oh, what's that stupid code or that text, right? We don't turn that on for our alerts. Someday maybe, but that would mitigate a lot of these things as well as this one here. Impossible travel activity. So this account, and I don't know the exact details, but hypothetically, this account was accessed in San Antonio, Texas, and then Portland, Oregon, and then New York City, all within a 10-minute span. Not physically possible, right? And also, do we know what is true about our accounts? One of the mitigations that we do have in place. If you're not within one of the 50 United States, guess what? You don't get to access your account, right? International travelers have to let us know. We allow international access, but we do have some geofencing when it comes to our accounts. But we have constant monitoring now with this collaboration we have and more with our partners over at NDIT. So that was pretty exciting. It was just really neat to meet this gentleman. It's funny, he doesn't even live in North Dakota. He lives down in Texas, but very astute guy. I don't know, maybe a little quirky personality type of things, but maybe that's what you got to be when you're a chief information security officer. Had some really neat ideas and was really complimentary of just K-12 in general. I think he was pretty new to the role and kind of getting the lay of the land, but he was very impressed again with that homogenous aspect that we have here in North Dakota K-12. So it was pretty exciting. I'm excited to see what he has for his strategic vision and what else he's going to roll out in the future. So that is our collaboration with the state. But as you know, one of the main things that we do in terms of an active basis here internally and focusing on our layer 1, our first line of defense, is the know before application. And it's really a suite of applications. We all know it for the fish alert button, but we're going to talk about a few other things here tonight as well. All right, so let's take a look. So what it looks like that little guy. Whoops, let me make it bigger here so you can see. So it looks like that little guy right there. That's the button that you hit when you take a look at your mobile device. It looks very similar. The icon's the same. But when we take a look, it's an active way for our users to take action, be proactive in a stance. What you see here, and I grade some things out, this is actual real snapshot from, I don't know, 30 minutes ago. But these are our active campaigns, right? So I grade them out. Not tip off certain people, but I mean, I think most people know. So all district staff, right, on a monthly basis, sometime every month, they're going to get a fish alert, simulated phishing email from us, right? I'm not going to burst anybody's bubble, but the top one is all WFPS staff that I have grayed out. So over the course of the next 3 weeks, it's going to keep sending out email. At this point in time, 2.5% of those that have received it are fish prone, but there's 3 more weeks to go in the campaign, right? If you take a look at the second one, again, I know it's a little bit fuzzy, but if you just look at the categories, because we can pick the content delivered to these groups, you know, business, what does it say? Business and finance. I wonder who's getting those. They're getting those on a weekly basis. And we're going to talk about the neat collaboration that we have with another leader that has chosen to step forward and say, you know what? Give it to us every week. Give it to us every week. So you can see we got 4 more days in the delivery. And guess what? Next week, it's going to start all over. So it doesn't send them all out at once. So Montoni can walk in the social studies office at High and say, hey, guys, it came today. This is the one. Click on this. It's staggered for all staff throughout the month, right? So then we have a couple leadership groups and we have our technology team as well. But those are active campaigns, and that's kind of what it looks like there. Now, what are the results? So last year, we were 8.7. So this year, we're on an average 6.7% fish prone score. The industry standard is 5.4, if you want to take a look at that metric. But you can see, and this isn't a real look at it, we can log in the dashboard and see, but this is just a snapshot. But we've had some rough ones. We had some clickers, right? And when we do this in the real dashboard, it's going to tell us which group, it's going to tell us if they click, if they open an attachment. There's even ones that send QR codes, so someone scan a QR code and we can trace it all back down to the user, and that's not our purpose. This is not for evil, right? This is just to continually give people an opportunity to practice, and we will have some evolutions. The one thing that I really like to report is this. If you look at this, the blue are reports, so someone hit the fish alert button in response to a simulated phishing email. And come on, folks, we've seen some of them. Some are pretty obvious, right? It's like, come on, you know that this is phishing. But look at the black. And we want to see that continue. So this is the 30-day snapshot from March 24 to today.
Oh,
What the black bars represent is someone hit the fish alert button in response to an email that we did not send in a simulated campaign. So people are using it. And it's a no-cost endeavor, right? If Schaefer hits one of my emails and says, this guy is spamming me, right? Our network team will analyze, they'll say, no, this is really from Ed, it's good. And they'll send it right back to Dan and say, hey, Dan, this email is legit, you can work it.
I didn't get that back when I cinnamon rolls at the lunchroom. I tested. I put a fish alert for that one. I didn't get one back.
Maybe we kept that one so you didn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, people are using it for legit purposes, which is a real positive. And the thing that I wanted to point out last is there is a suite of products. There is a whole training component to this. Okay, so let's take a look. This year, there was a department leader that was brave enough to step forward and say, I want to enroll all of my team members into a training at the beginning of the year. And we did that. And all 7 of your team members completed, what was it, 4 or 5 video modules? 5 video modules, and now they get fished weekly, right? Our next iteration, we have an opportunity, as you guys know, every Tuesday morning, Superintendent Sleddy and the core team get together. But once a month afterwards, we have a little focus on technology. We talked about these fish ER things, that's what we call it, it's the fish ER application. And next fall, we're going to explore if you fail X number of times, you're just automatically going to be enrolled in some training. You have to complete it. But you have to be careful, right? We need to do it well. I mean, the concept is good. I saw everyone shake their head here, but if we don't implement it well, if we don't communicate it well, it could be adverse. So we're going to take our time with that and make sure it's a positive cultural thing, not a negative.
If you don't send it as a fishing meal, are you in trouble?
If you
If
do
you-
not report
You
it,
don't report it?
no. Because there's plenty of people that just delete it.
I just delete
And
it.
at the end of the day, that's just as positive, right? What we lose when we don't report. So when people report an email, it'll take a look at a variety of components of the email. And if we can get 3 matches on, I think it's 6 different criteria, it'll actively go pull it out of other people's mailboxes as well. So there's value to reporting. When it's a legit fish, not a fish simulated fish.
Yep.
But yes, if you report and it's a legit fish and they've used the same subject, they have the same sender, they have the same, I don't know all the details, the security team knows more of those. It'll actually go and find that on all inboxes and say, okay, match, match, match. Shoop, it'll just pull it right up. So very, very powerful product. All right. So we talked about our fish ER. And let's do our threat spotlight. So last year we talked about the concept of social engineering, right? Gone are the days, well, they're still there, but there's more honeypots. So there's more treasure chests, prizes, whatever you want to call that positive thing, that these adversaries are after that can only be gotten through the human. So last year we talked about social engineering, leveraging relationships, right? And Heather and I, we may agree to disagree, but what is Ed Mitchell's viewpoint on putting email addresses out on the public website?
No go.
No go. What is Ed Mitchell's viewpoint of putting an organizational chart that says Beth Sleddy, Vince Williams, Rachel Agar reports to them, these people report to them, these people report to them?
Bad idea.
Don't do it. There are people that are gonna find out that Ed Mitchell reports to that lady there, and they're gonna pretend to be that lady and try to get me to do something. And it's real.
Point.
It's not like when Patty keeps emailing you. How many times have you?
So last year, we talked about social engineering and I gave you this. Okay, look at the date. It's 4/1 of 2023. This happened, or 2022, excuse me. This happened really in our environment. 2 years ago. Someone created an account that looked like it was from North Dakota Association of Career and Tech Ed, so you could probably figure out who was the recipient of this one, right? The spouse of someone sitting in this room, and it says, hey, I need some gift cards because we're gonna help these veterans. Come on, have a heart. Get off your top and go get a gift card. Who doesn't want to support that? But it really wasn't them, and it wasn't for that purpose. Okay? So this year, and I don't have a copy of it because I didn't have the person's phone, but this year we were introduced to smishing. So this came in the form of email. What is smishing? Same thing coming in the form of
Text.
a text message.
I've had that happen
Oh,
all
I guess so.
too.
Yeah.
The sending text clearly stated, I am Superintendent Sledding. And I need gift cards. I need your help.
I need
Right?
to know.
Then someone engaged in conversation, because there's really someone there. They're like, oh, I need you to give me some gift cards. And that's when our user said, whoa, this doesn't sound. But it's real. It happens because data breaches, yes, they have passwords, they have account numbers, but they have phone numbers, they have addresses. And then the whole layer of social engineering on top of, Catch Me If You Can, right? You guys ever watch that movie? How can I manipulate all these pieces to convince Johnny, Susie, Sally, Ed to do something that I want them to do?
About the hierarchy chart, which may be why I get hacked so many times, because it's.
Yeah.
Not
It's a bad
just
thing.
board, but a state board is like, what the heck? How do you cross over now? That probably explains it. They're going onto the website and shows clearly
Yeah.
who reports to whom.
Again, you can't live your life in fear,
Yeah.
right?
They just haven't sent me any money though, Ed.
Yeah.
Many times I haven't got a single gift card.
But you have to be aware those things can open the door to more complicated, intricate, detailed social engineering.
I
It's
think,
just really at the end of the day, we talk about it a lot at core. We're not going to drive that, right? In my opinion and her opinion, mine's not right. We're going to do what's right for the core. It's just what risk is the organization willing to take on, right? Question.
do we see this? I mean, I think we've all seen it on our cell phones in the form of text, but is it possible that it could be something like Messenger? Like in
Yeah.
Teams?
Yeah.
Because that would be one where I, as you were talking through it, I was like, whoa, if I would have got a Teams message from someone, I would,
And again, a lot of that's going to do with your IT team, right?
okay,
So here, if you want to get specifically the teams, from the admin perspective, I can allow or disallow external traffic. And I will tell you right now, we do allow it. Right? But it will clearly say external. So even if it says Best Lady, like, go get me something, it'll say Best Lady external. You'll know it's not her actual account because it'll clearly mark external.
so if I were to, like, if I'm at work at my other job and I switch over and send a message to ask a question, like, would it say external then, or would still say,
No, because if you send it to me, I'm going to respond to your West Fargo one. So then you got to go back to your West Fargo one and look. But I can send you one to the work one if you want to see what it looks like. It'll say it.
okay,
It's the same concept on your emails, why we have the little yellow and the little red warning signs. It's a simple thing, but it goes just to what you say. Sometimes we don't look at the domain. We don't look at that. We just look at, oh, Vince. vinceimscamming.com is different than vince@west-fargo.com, right? And vinceimscamming.com is gonna have this big red header that says, this isn't an internal email.
Right, I've seen the emails. Yeah, it just wasn't sure on Messenger.
Well, with Messenger, unless his account is actually compromised and they're sending from V Williams at West-Fargo, it's gonna say external if it's, I'm scamming.com. They got their own team instance. They created a user called Vince Williams. It's gonna say external.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we had an opportunity to take a look at how we're continuing to work with the state, evolving our relationship with really a good group of people that have the best intentions. And at the end of the day, you have a legislature that's keenly interested in this and are allocating dollars. So we're going to try to maximize those as much as we can. I'm excited for the curricular instruction impact for our cybersecurity standards or the lessons that are being drawn in there. So I think that's a real move forward because now we're going to broaden that net of strengthening our initial line of defense, our layer one users. We took a look at Fish Alert and just maybe got a little bit greater understanding of that and how we're going to continue to evolve that. And then we took a look at smishing. So now you know about smishing. Tell your friends. Anything else?
With all this technology monitoring constantly, greater demand on our devices where they need to be more, have more memory or more, like, are we having
Yeah.
to spend more on higher level quality devices?
The endpoint device itself, typically no, right? It's the logging device. So we ran into a scenario earlier this week at the elementary level. I'll be transparent. So all of our K2 learners, their username is their, okay, so there's a potential for password less than complex at our elementary learner level, right?
Sure.
So we had to do some investigation and our logs ran out, right? Because we choose to keep them for so long. But yes, the more you log, right? So every keystroke, it creates a log event. How much do you want to keep? So it's not so much on the endpoint device, it's
Okay.
more on the back end devices that we choose to store our logs. Yeah, so we were this close, but we needed to manipulate our logging retention policy for another day. And we were fortunate enough that the curious cat repeated the action and then we had the information. Put it that way.
Got it.
Good way to put it.
Okay. Well, thank you again for all your support of our team and allowing us to do what we do.
We're going to monitor this too. So if you have any questions, you can just ask during the OE7 presentation. If you want to move on to that. Mr. Blackmire.
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent Slutty. So OE7 is largely broken up, I would say, into sort of 4 sections. Mr. Mitchell did a wonderful job of, I would say, sort of highlighting the third, which really focuses on sort of our technological infrastructure and some of the key metrics that the board monitors to ensure that we're thinking about security in a comprehensive sense, not only how are we securing our inventory and our physical assets, but practicing good hygiene down to the password level, all the way through how we store data and ensuring that our key infrastructure systems are on uninterruptible power, which was not something I had thought about before joining this organization, but that's why, for many reasons, why we need to make sure that the power is always on at West Fargo High School. So that would be the third section. The first 2 really just are compliance related to ensure that we have adequate levels of insurance to meet the risks facing an organization of our size. The second one is related to our inventory process. We contract with RCI for all devices that are valued at, or all items and assets that are valued at $750 or more. But as you also see, given our spend on iPads and the importance that that has in our sort of instructional posture, we have also included that data for your awareness as well. And then the last one is just sort of a miscellaneous set of compliance related items, from the image of the school district to land purchases to utilization of an attorney. So I'm happy to answer any questions if board members have anything on there. Certainly welcome Mr. Mitchell or Jean-Luc, Mr. Arella, our Director of Accounting, if there's anything that either of you would like to add. Thanks to you both and your teams for getting this together. This is a big lift, and we always use it both not only for compliance, but continuous improvement. So I guess at the sake of continuing to ramble down, I will stop there and answer any questions. If folks have any, this is a pretty dense and probably one of our most wide-reaching OE the fiscal year. But I'm pleased to report that we are in compliance across all 4 of those key themes.
It was right around 600 million. Did I read that right?
For-
In the insurance coverages?
Yes, the valuation of our property is well over $500 million now, which you're like, that doesn't make any sense. But you think about that, we're soon being, I believe, our 28th, 29th facility. And just we have been working with we're currently going through our property insurance renewal. And our broker is working very hard to achieve, favorable rates for us, but we have some replacement cost per square foot at some of our facilities that they just won't accept as plausible anymore. So we have been adjusting to reflect sort of current construction costs. We were looking actually at switching over to NDER, the North Dakota Insurance Reserve, but found out that most political subdivisions in the area use it, and they have a blanket single event catastrophe. So if a tornado was to come through the area and damage our properties if we participated, and the city of Fargo and the city of West Fargo and Fargo Public Schools and NDSU, there's an aggregate limit over all of us. And $250 million for one catastrophic event for basically every government in Cass County did not feel sufficient. So we declined to explore a more comprehensive bid with them for next fiscal year. But yeah, we own a lot of property, and just the general cost per square foot for every building is increasing substantially.
Kind of a point of clarification, I think this is, am I in one? Right, I'm in one. Yeah, 7.5 indicator 3. We're talking just a couple of things, maybe measures. One, it says we back up content for 7 years. But yet the bullet point with email says we only do 5, and we've changed that. And the last thing on there, I'm just curious about the terabytes. I just need to know the answer. But so that was the first question. So should we be changing the indicator to say retained for 7 years unless notated for something different, since we only do 5 for emails?
Yeah, we sure can. I think our standard's always been 7 for kind of the network drives, the home drives, that whole storage array. But yeah, we've manipulated email a couple times in the last year. So learners is 4, staff is 5. I didn't know how to put all that in there, but we sure can.
That might be a good item for governance.
I think the second, the last one was just the storage, so I have to know. So it said in 2022 it reduced because, it had a reason why, but yet we increased to 127.41 terabytes, which is a lot. So are you ever concerned about that we have too much storage in terabytes for data stored?
No, I think for an organization this size, it's not disproportional. And then we have a new storage array that was put in place last summer. So we're versed, ripe and ready to grow. It's interesting as you take a look at a lot of content on the user level, right? So when you take a look at our our storage area network, the H drives, the network share drives are not as used as much by individual users. What you're seeing here is the growth of facilities, all the camera footage, new systems like door access control. It's really those types of things that are causing the growth. The majority of our users, they're using cloud storage solutions. And it's crazy. We've always had as much as we wanted, but we're going to be limited to 100 terabytes as a tenant tier. Within the next year, Microsoft is starting to realize, okay, we can't just do this forever. It's pretty amazing. We've had a few users where we've had to up the ante a little bit. Past 4 terabytes is just kind of something that we put in there as kind of a benchmark. It's not like a hard stop. 4 terabytes is a lot for an individual.
Right.
We've had a couple that we had to
So the last bullet point we talked about the 2022 total storage and why
Yeah.
it changed, but we don't say why in 2023 that we went from 102 to 127. And maybe it's not important, maybe we don't need those data points, but we didn't put why it increased by, 25% to 23. Maybe it's not important.
But I would say typically you're gonna see growth over the years. You know, the oddity and the explanation comes in why did we shrink one?
Should it be proportionate to the growth of our learners or I mean,
No.
there's both the,
It's not really gonna be impacted by users. It's gonna be impacted a lot by facilities. And the number of additional security. I mean, our biggest consumer is gonna be the security camera footage,
right?
right? And then there's a variety of different things. So there's movement and that's, oh man, you gotta help me. It's movements kept for, so any movement activity that's kept for 30 days.
So we shouldn't go in front of the camera and keep doing this.
Well, that small clip is gonna be kept for 30 days, but I mean, we're not gonna sit here and monitor an empty boardroom for 30 days. I think, what is that, a week? So, I mean,
1,800 across the district that are storing footage.
Makes sense.
you're gonna continue to see that grow, as the facilities rentals programs continue to be popular and hot, but the buildings don't sleep. So that video stored for 30 days is gonna continue to grow as well.
I know, I really appreciate all the data in here. It's useful. Do you find anything in here that for you at or all the areas, is there anything in here maybe that doesn't make sense for us to continue to monitor? Or is there something new that we should be adding that we're missing? Talk about AI. I mean, is there anything outside there?
I think when you look at this one, it's really the asset protection,
Yeah,
right? So these are digital assets, digital intelligence, and digital content. I think there's a lot of things that are emerging that are applicably associated, but not actually content that belongs to the organization. I think the emerging things really impact how that content is created, but not the actual content itself.
Because usually after we're done with this, we talk about governance and it'd be more useful if you think we're missing something or we should be doing something that we don't always catch. Or if we're monitoring something, you get all done and say, this doesn't really matter to me. It's just, we do it because you asked for it. Does it really help you out? I mean, we're not looking to keep giving you more work so we have a data point. So
Yeah, right. Well, I think it tells the story
Mhm.
and it fits in there. And I think probably the biggest thing, if you look at indicator 4, this has been a long time coming. But we have redundant tapes, because you guys have to understand that West Fargo is a very important building when it comes to this. We have a lot of eggs in a single basket. So we have redundant tapes finally being created. But we don't have a receptacle here at this facility to store them. So we either need to choose a different facility, because we need something fireproof, but we also need something that not everyone has access to. So it's kind of a unicorn.
Interesting.
So,
You answered my question. I was
Yeah.
gonna ask you, a district or an organization our size, is it wise to have all of our eggs in one basket?
it's not. I mean, we could talk about offsite disaster recovery, because that would be the utopian, right? That is the cat's meow. So like the data center over Consolidated on 32nd there, they host a lot of that stuff. But as a district in our dynamic situation, growing as much as we are, it's just not viable. I'm sorry, folks. We can't allocate those dollars to that and not our educators for our learners. I mean, we're gonna figure this out, because worst case scenario, I can get you to yesterday sometime, right? Then when we have tapes here and tapes there, I'm pretty sure I'll get you to yesterday no matter what, but they're in a pretty good spot over West Fargo High. They're very exclusive access, of which I don't even, right? And they're in a fireproof receptacle, waterproof receptacle, so I mean, come Armageddon, we should still be okay. We should be able to pull those tapes out now. Will we have the equipment to plug them into and bring everything back to life? I mean, that's a different story, right?
Will it ever be completely cloud-based?
Someday, I mean, there are a lot of organizations that are, their whole whole disaster recovery plan is offsite, cloud-based, right? Make a phone call, we want to be today at 9 o'clock. Somebody does that, 40 minutes later, you're back to where you were at 9 o'clock today. But we're not there yet. We still have some homegrown applications that we can't push off sites, so.
Things have changed just a little bit over the 10 years or so.
Right?
All right, any other questions in regard to OE7? Any motion?
Make a motion to approve OE7
As complaint.
as compliant.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jessica. Is there any more discussion? Thank you all. I really do appreciate the time and effort. We know it takes a lot to put that together. All right, all those in favor of approving OE7 asset protection as in compliance, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on to our board committee report, we have planning and development on our list. We didn't have.
I was gonna say, it's not on the list.
I know, we still gotta do it, John. I
No,
remember I was there.
yes. And the biggest conversation we had probably, I'm not spend a lot of time on because it has kind of been tabled, but we did have a really long conversation with, and I'm drawing a blank on the individual's name, but the next senior, that was the company.
Tyler.
Right? Yeah, Tyler. He joined us online and kind of went through it, but ultimately they're looking at building some affordable housing for 55 and older residents. And in doing that, they are looking for a pilot and to be able to kind of do that tax incentive and kind of walk through that. It had not passed the city and the county and gone through all the different steps at those levels yet. So we had a good conversation, kind of walked through a lot of it. There were certain outstanding questions that we didn't fully understand, and at this point, we're going to just kind of table that until the city and county can vet out a little bit more of that information, and then I think we'll kind of come back to it. So it's one of those things where certainly there were a lot of questions, and I think we were all kind of scratching our heads a little bit on some of the answers. So we're going to wait a little bit on that, but. Yeah, just some of it didn't quite match up. So more to come on that one. That was over essentially just south of, or Granite City is what I was thinking of, but there's a lot over there. So it's kind of in no man's land, really. If they were going to develop it, if they're developing it, it would be probably a good area to develop because nothing's there right now. But how they're going about doing it, we just need to clarify a little more. So any questions on that one? All right. The next, looking at transportation planning, and really just the biggest topic that we had there is really kind of designating out of town and in town stops. And I think that the biggest thing is for weather. So if you are an out of town and we have bad weather, you can designate that we aren't going to go ahead and pick up those learners. Essentially, they would be on their own to make it in if their parents are coming into town or whoever. But in town, then we would be able to run our buses. If there were those designations, then that just separate that a little bit, just because we have a fair number of rural routes and to only base it on what it looks like out at Harwood or what it looks like out at, way out in the middle of no place, it's tough because in town, a lot of times it is drivable. So that was the biggest thing that we kind of talked about for that. And then along with the second piece of that is we talked about bus drivers. It's a very frequent conversation as we're going through. We're still short of those bus drivers. But the conversation was really kind of taking a look at the wages and look at the open spots that we have and how can we apply those open spots to maybe redo the wages a little bit. Take a look at, I know there was a nice chart that listed out that Levi shared that had the different wages for the different bus companies around Valley, and there were a few others on there, and certainly the different districts and where we kind of stood, and we were probably kind of mid to low on that chart, and how can we maybe, instead of leaving those positions open, let's maybe whittle those down a little bit and expand the wage on that. So I know they were going to do a study and see what that would do. So anything you want to add to that one? Okay. And then we looked at lowest responsible bidder decision, really kind of developing some expectations for some of the different bidders. We've had some bidders that didn't quite fulfill their contract, and still not willing to work with us on some of the different work that they have done. And so it's been really trying to define those policies more and be more upfront on what is expected. And if it isn't done to a certain level, then, and really kind of outline that, being that we are kind of becoming the contractor in some of those smaller ones is really kind of divining, pushing us that we have to have those in place where, and continue to be clear. We've had pretty good luck, but fortunately we have a few bad eggs that have popped up.
So would that go into the RFP process or?
So if it's sort of work that's done, yeah, and if we go through if the board formally declares a contractor or subcontractor to be not a responsible bidder, then we would just put on the specifications in the future. And part of the discussion, I have sent a communication to that subcontractor, have not heard anything yet.
Okay.
But will be sort of a decision for the board. I don't believe in Century Code, it spells out the length of time in which one is considered an irresponsible bidder. So sort of an opportunity to give that some thought, because if that's the route that ultimately we go, I mean, it ranges anything from the board's wishes, which could be, I would say at a minimum, the remainder of the fiscal year in which it's acted upon through indefinitely. Both of those maybe feel not like the best approach. They're probably somewhere in between, but once we sort of we have the conversation with the subcontractor, see if there's any information that we're not aware of, be able to bring an update, and hopefully that means some check coming as opposed to a conversation about, we never not want to include contractors knowing how hard labor availability is. So this is certainly not something that we take lightly. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we are watchdogs of taxpayer resources.
I think the last couple where we felt like the district sort of took the brunt, the hockey problem in its courts, that we have no recourse, and I just don't think that's right. We need to have that spelled out very clearly.
I'm hopeful we can come to an amicable resolution. I don't yet have a whole lot of data to suggest me that's where we'll end up, but we will, I was thinking approximately 3 weeks to give this gentleman, and then probably next step would be to report back at the workshop if we're ready to sort of move forward with the next step if we haven't heard anything at that time.
So when we put things out for procurement,
Mhm.
do we verify that they're in good standing?
We do, the state law requires that they have a contractor's license, that they're
Yeah.
bidded and bonded, so meeting generally those expectations as it relates to that they have a license, which is sort of our in good standing expectation.
Sure.
We don't currently have anyone on the irresponsible bidder list. We've brought in a couple contractors close over the years, but we've always been able to sort of walk it back. So I'm hopeful that's the case in this instance as well, but that's sort of our process. Do we have anyone on our internal list? And then are they appropriately licensed and bonded through the state? Yes, it's Michelle.
And for federal grants, we must do check. Federal site. Make
Okay.
sure. Vendors.
Sure.
Appreciate
Well, that's what I was,
Yeah.
I was curious if if it's, if we look at the Secretary of State's website and just make sure.
Yeah.
It's. Very. Something.
Right, but then North Dakota.
We do that.
And then do we report into like the Better Business Bureau or anything if we do hit?
I would assume that would be something that we would do if we took that next step of formal board action. We just haven't gotten there as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
But yeah.
This is all new then, or all like.
Yes,
new
I would say
discussion.
we've been in where we are today before a handful of times, from my conversations with Mr. Lemaire and even a few limited experiences while I've been here. But we've always been able to sort of walk it back.
Mhm.
I think there's a general sense between some of our conversations with the architect, as well as Mark, who's as much of an expert as anybody in the state, that there's less confidence this go around than others, but we certainly hope to be pleasantly surprised.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
That was it. Yeah.
All right, any questions from the group from PB? Thank you. All right, let's move on to our consent agenda. I'm sorry, we want to do the action.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't on the thing. So that's-
How would we review and take action on staffing requests?
All right, this is a nice short one, and it is all grant funded items. So there are 3 reading interventionists being requested at elementary schools. So you see Eastwood, Willow Park, and LA Burger are asking to use either upcoming Title I funds or Title I carryover funds to apply to those reading interventionist positions. So those would be basically continuing their ESSER fund efforts. So in these positions, there's a 1, a 0.5, and a 0.5 for those schools. And then for the upcoming school year, we are also looking at a math interventionist at Heritage Middle School, and they are funding that 0.5 through their TSI grants. So that's the targeted support and intervention grants. So they would be using 0.5 to specifically do those math supports.
This is questions?
Any questions on that?
Just, I guess, one that you said carryover. Is that carryover a position we couldn't fill?
No, Title I carryover funds is what I mean.
Okay.
I move to approve the staffing request for 24-25 as presented.
Thank you, Tricia.
Second.
Jim, is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the staffing request, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. We can move on to the consent agenda now.
I move to approve.
Thank you, Dad.
Second.
Thank you, Tricia. Is there any discussion? Discussion. All right, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on to the superintendent's report.
The upstate meeting dates. We announced in you just a moment. Patty, everyone?
We're almost done.
Oh, okay, good. Sorry. Only the upcoming meetings. So, governance, committee of the whole, and the school board.
All right. Just for me, just really quick one, I wanted to thank Jessica for filling in for me last week. And 2, I wanted to, when I talk to school board members across the nation, I don't think we realize how lucky we are in the state of North Dakota overall with our school board association and our members, how different we are than the rest of the country. But every time we ask for, sent out a message about graduation, the fact that you all step up and say, I'm happy to do that it's not just my job as the president or your job as your president, that we're all willing to kind of step up and do that is such a nice thing for me as president, but as a board, it says so much for us that we work together. I really, really want to say that out loud because when I ask, you want to speak? Everyone, yep, I'd be happy to. And I think that's kind of unusual. So thank you all for that. And at the national level, I hear all kinds of stories and I can say, we don't have those problems. We don't have that problem. So thank you all very much, administration and our board. I'm just really, really appreciative. I'm looking forward to another 4 years that we get to work together, which is even better than that. So that was it. All right. Is there anything else to share before we adjourn? All right. We will officially adjourn. I do have chocolate chip bars for everyone to celebrate birthdays. I know you had this great
That's right.
lunch, but for yourself. There were fresh breakfast coffee.
Yes, I have to apologize.